Everyone knows that vegetables are a crucial part of a balanced and healthy diet. However, a few vegetables that are considered high in nutrients might pose a massive threat to damaged kidneys or patients with CKD. You see, the kidneys are essential for removing extra minerals and chemicals from the blood. When the kidneys are not working correctly, high-level concentrations of these chemicals can accumulate. Thus, in today's session, we will examine 8 veggies that people with CKD may need to minimize or avoid completely. But don't worry, we'll also show you how to prepare some of these vegetables properly so you can still enjoy them in moderation. Because at the end of the day, a well-balanced, nutrient-dense diet remains essential for CKD management. So, the first one on the list is tomatoes. Everyone has had a juicy, fresh tomato right out of the garden or chopped into a salad. Tomatoes are a basic component of many recipes, including salsas and pasta sauces. However, people with CKD should be cautious about eating tomatoes. Tomatoes contain a surprising amount of potassium. When the kidneys aren't fully working, they can't filter this extra potassium. This results in hyperkalemia, a condition when potassium accumulates in the blood. Although high potassium levels may not seem very concerning, they can really result in some very serious problems, such as fatigue and weakness, tingling or numbness, and irregular heartbeat. Vomiting and nausea. In extreme situations, it might potentially result in heart attack and paralysis. But before you swear off tomatoes forever, there's some good news. Studies have shown that tomatoes can still be included in a CKD-friendly diet, but only in small amounts and in combination with low-potassium foods. Consume no more than 1 medium fresh tomato daily, or roughly a quarter of a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. Do not eat tomatoes more than once a day. And if your potassium levels are high, limit your tomato intake to 1 to 3 times a week. The idea is to be potassium aware and examine the potassium levels in all of your meals throughout the day. Spinach. While spinach can be a healthy element of most people's diets, those with CKD must be very cautious. You see, spinach is also quite high in potassium, with just 1 cup of cooked spinach providing 840 milligrams. For reference, a healthy adult with no kidney difficulties should aim for a maximum of 4,700 milligrams of potassium per day. And spinach's high potassium content isn't the only reason for concern. This leafy green also contains oxalates, chemicals that can bind to minerals such as calcium and encourages the production of kidney stones. According to one study, drinking spinach juice or smoothies raised urinary oxalate levels and increased the chance of developing kidney stones. This does not mean you will never eat spinach again, but portion control is critical. Nephrologists and dietitians recommend use no more than 1/2 cup of cooked spinach every day. Choosing low-potassium greens such as romaine lettuce, arugula, or beet greens instead. Selecting fresh spinach over frozen or canned, which may be more concentrated. If you do eat spinach, make sure it's balanced with other low-potassium foods and not consumed in excess. Pickles and relish. Who doesn't like a burger or hot dog topped with crunchy, tasty pickles or relish? However, these apparently benign toppings may be dangerous for people trying to reduce their salt intake. The pickling method needs a lot of salt to preserve the veggies and give them the typical sour dill or sweet taste. All of this salt can be detrimental to renal patients. Just 1 big dill pickle may contain over 1,000 milligrams of salt, which is 47% of the daily recommended amount. When kidney function is poor, excess salt can cause fluid buildup, raising blood pressure and putting additional strain on the kidneys. So while an occasional pickle or spoonful of relish may not seem like an enormous problem, it can rapidly mount up, especially if you enjoy salt. And for kidneys already working overtime, extra salt adds insult to injury. Olives. These salty, flavorful little gems are a healthy fat source that many people enjoy. And if you're a fan of Mediterranean cuisine, you're certainly no stranger to olives. But olives, especially those packed in a salt brine, should be consumed with caution by those with chronic kidney disease. That's because olives, like pickles, can contain shockingly high amounts of sodium. Let's look at the nutrition stats on a typical serving of 8 Kalamata olives. 320 milligrams sodium, 2 grams carbs, 2.5 grams of fat, 2 grams of protein, 320 milligrams of sodium may sound all right at first glance, but keep in mind that's just for 8 tiny olives. Those sodium numbers can quickly skyrocket if you tend to snack on olives straight from the container. When you have CKD, too much sodium increases your risk of complications like fluid retention, high blood pressure, and further straining your already compromised kidneys. The recommendation is to limit yourself to just a tiny portion, around 8 to 10 olives max. You can also rinse them to remove some of that salty brine before eating. Of course, remember to pair them with plenty of water to help flush out excess sodium. Potatoes. Whether baked, mashed, or fried, potatoes are a diet staple for many people. However, potatoes and their extremely high potassium levels need to be limited substantially for those dealing with CKD. Let's look at the numbers. One medium baked potato clocks in at around 610 milligrams of potassium. And if you go for a sweet potato instead, you're looking at over 500 milligrams of this problematic mineral. A single potato is a considerable portion when CKD patients are often advised to keep their daily potassium intake below 2,000 milligrams. Now, potatoes that have been appropriately soaked and removed from their skins are more acceptable on a renal diet. However, it's still best for CKD patients to limit white potatoes and choose lower potassium starches like pasta, rice, or bread instead. Swiss chard. Swiss chard may not be the most popular green at your local supermarket, but it's beloved by many for its slightly sweet, earthy flavor and nutrient density. Unfortunately, Swiss chard shares something in common with spinach. It's extremely high in potassium and oxalates. Just a single cup of cooked Swiss chard contains 960 milligrams of potassium. So, just 1 cup of Swiss chard makes up nearly half the recommended daily limit. Just like with spinach, oxalate compounds substantially increase the risk of developing excruciating kidney stones by binding to calcium. So, what can you do? Well, the recommendations are pretty straightforward. Avoid it as much as possible, especially when potassium or oxalate levels are already high. If you must get your chard fix, stick to just a few leaves at most and balance it out with plenty of low potassium, low oxalate foods for that meal. But in general, it's best to leave high oxalate greens like Swiss chard off your plate when dealing with kidney disease. Rhubarb. Rhubarb also contains exceptionally high levels of oxalates, those compounds that can bind to calcium and promote the formation of kidney stones. Research shows that rhubarb contains approximately 570 to 1,900 milligrams of oxalate per 3.5 ounces. That's an absolute ton, especially for those with compromised kidney function. Past research has shown that rhubarb positively affects kidney production, shielding them from issues like fibrosis, oxidation, inflammation, autophagy, and apoptosis. However, prolonged improper use of rhubarb can harm kidney function. Rhubarb also interacts with medications that harm the kidneys, known as nephrotoxic drugs. Using rhubarb alongside these medications could further raise the risk of kidney damage. Regarding kidney health, this particular stalk veggie gets a hard pass. Canned vegetables. While fresh vegetables are nutritious, canned varieties can be a double-edged sword. The main issue? Sodium again. Canned veggies tend to be highly loaded with sodium, which manufacturers add to increase shelf life and flavor. But for people with CKD, whose kidneys can't properly filter out excess sodium, this leads to fluid retention issues. Research shows that high sodium intake accelerates kidney function decline and increases the risk of cardiovascular complications in CKD patients. One study even found a link between the BPA coating used in can linings and elevated urine albumin levels, a kidney damage biomarker. The evidence is clear. Those with kidney disease should strictly limit canned goods like veggies, soups, and beans, which are significant sources of excess sodium and potentially harmful compounds. If you opt for canned veggies, be sure to thoroughly rinse before cooking to remove some of that added salt. So if you found this information helpful, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on our latest health content. Drop any questions you have down in the comments as well. And remember to share this video with any friends or loved ones dealing with CKD. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.